What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Some interesting stuff to talk about here today, including Nintendo apparently closing a deal to have a movie based around, well, Super Mario. So that could be interesting. But today, let's get started. Now we're going to start with LA Noire. It came out yesterday on the Switch, the PS4, and the Xbox One. And there's been a lot of controversy around the Switch version, or at least a lot of intrigue, trying to figure out which version it was. Or a lot of people saying it's just the 360 and the PS3 version and nothing else. And then we get some comparison videos that have come out, and it looks like the Switch and the PS4 version are almost identical. It was actually surprising to a lot of people. It seems like there's almost no difference at all. Now, if you have a PS4 Pro or the Xbox One X and you have the 4K patch installed, of course you're going to have 4K visuals, but overall lighting, shadows, for the most part, it all looks at first glance like it's the same game. It's very interesting, and like I said, it's thrown a lot of people off because a lot of people originally were saying it's going to be a pretty drastic difference with one getting the 360 version and one getting, well, the Xbox One version. Now, this has really got a lot of people excited because they see that this port from Rockstar, this game that has been put out, appears to be pretty good overall, and of course now everyone's looking at their next big game, which is Grand Theft Auto 5, and we keep hearing rumors about it, right? People keep talking about it, and I think a lot of us assume at this point that it's in the works because it's like the one system it's not on at this point, right? Since, well, it missed the Wii U at this point, but this is the one system it's not on, and that's like a whole fresh wave of customers that they can hit, especially since then GTA 5 will be portable. I can't tell you how excited I would be personally if GTA 5 came out on the Switch and it's portable. Sure, I have it on the PS4, the PC, and then I'd have it on the Switch because I would get it on the Switch, but still, that's, to me, a big deal to have it portably. That would be a massive step towards, like, I guess any game at that point going to the Switch. I mean, we've seen Doom, so in my mind, I'm like, yeah, any game. But to have that one big open world game that's a third-party game that's not made by Nintendo, so not like a Zelda or something, like this massive open world Grand Theft Auto 5, that would be interesting. And at that point, that with Doom would tell most of us, well, you could pretty much put anything on the Switch. So I'm hoping that 2018 is packed with some other games, and one of them being Grand Theft Auto 5, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. Next up, let's talk about the Super Mario movie. Now, this report comes way of the Wall Street Journal, and according to them, Nintendo is currently in a deal with Illumination Entertainment and Universal Pictures to sign a deal that would put Mario up on the big screen. Of course, Illumination is the company behind Despicable Me. So think of something, I would assume, in that sense, those visuals, right, that aesthetic. Think of something like that. Now, how would they go about a story? I'm not really sure. That's the one thing most Mario games are missing, right, is a compelling story. A lot of people have said online, well, you can look at, Mario RPG, different games outside of the standard platforming Mario games to get an idea of what they could do. However, it's going to be interesting. I know they have the face of Mario to slap all over the posters, and they will get ticket sales. Trust me, if the Emoji movie can get ticket sales, the Mario movie can get ticket sales. But I don't think Nintendo wants to have another terrible movie, right? They don't want to have another 1993 or Mario, right? They don't want to have that. They want to have something like the Lego movie that was pretty good in a lot of critics' eyes. They don't want to have something that's terrible like the Emoji movie. So it's going to be interesting. Now, Despicable Me also was favored by critics. So if they can develop a story that is good enough, put Mario in there and then make it look really good, they might have something on their hands. Of course, it's going to be catered towards a G-rated crowd. I'd even be shocked, honestly, if it was PG. But I'm curious what your thoughts are on the Super Mario movie. What would you do for a story? I'm really curious. Would you just go with the tried and true Bowser kidnapped Peach and now we have to adventure across the Mushroom Kingdom to rescue her? Or would you go in a completely different direction? Maybe just something completely out there and different? Let me know, guys. Next up, remember we talked about GameStop's rental deal? That was the rental deal where you would spend $60 and you have 6 months worth of unlimited rentals that were kind of like GameFly, except you wouldn't have to mail them in. You would go to the store, you'd exchange, you get a new one off the wall, and you'd go home with it. It covered all used games. Then at the end of that period, you would get to then keep any one game that you wanted, and basically you'd spend, for 6 months at a time. Well, according to sources inside Kotaku, it looks like they're going to be pushing that back for a while. And this came from a GameStop spokesperson to Kotaku saying, "We have elected to temporarily pause the rollout of the new Power Pass subscription service based on a few program limitations we have identified. We feel this is the right thing to do for now to ensure we're able to provide our guests an exceptional service. For those guests who have already purchased the service, we will allow them to bring the pass and video game they have checked out back to receive a full refund. In addition, we will allow them to pick out any pre-owned game for free." So at least GameStop is working with the customers. I assume there's not that many, and they're just giving them a free game for their time. I assume, their travel back and forth. You got to bring the game back. We got to then give you a refund, and then you have to pick a game out. So that's more likely where that is just compensation for the customer. However, I think some of the pitfalls, or at least limitations they're talking about, maybe they don't really understand how they can have these games. Do you have to keep going back to the same GameStop, right? Or can you go to any GameStop? Maybe their computer system isn't set up for that. And then, of course, maybe they're not sure about inventory control. Maybe one store just keeps getting too many of like Gears of War 4 because people keep bringing them back there or something. And then they have to RSB these things out. That's basically where we would pack up boxes of games and then ship them out throughout the day. Maybe that would cost them too much because we would just print out a UPS label, and I know those boxes weighed a lot, so they weren't cheap. But there are probably other limitations as well. However, at this point, they have no clue when they would be doing it. It's just pretty much on hold indefinitely at this time. They probably don't want to deal with it during the holiday season. This might be something that they want to pick back up in like February when it's slower, right? Especially before the, the March, April kind of releases that come out in the springtime. That would be a good, at least, trial period to get everything down when it's a little slower in stores. So don't expect it to show up this holiday as we saw before. They're even telling GameStop employees to replace the holiday pamphlet that they had that information in there with just their weekly ad in stores. Next up, we got word of the Game of the Year nominations for the Video Game Awards, which of course is hosted by Jeff Keighley, and they have this whole presentation set up. If you remember last year, there was a whole lot of issue with Overwatch winning, which I didn't really see that being a big deal because a lot of people played it. It was a good game, and it was finished, which is what the controversy this year is all about. Now, we did get a release of names, games, and everything for all different categories, but of course it always comes down to the big one, right? Game of the Year. And wouldn't you know it, there's a game on there that a lot of people are kind of frustrated with being there, and I could see both sides of the coin. So here's the list. You're going to see this here for the Game Awards nominees. These are for Game of the Year: Zelda Breath of the Wild, Super Mario Odyssey, Persona 5, Horizon Zero Dawn, and PUBG. So of those 5, which one do you think is the controversial one? Well, if you guessed PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, you'd be correct, because that is the one that people are a little iffy on. See, because the game technically is still in early access. It's technically still in like its beta stage. It's not actually out yet. And all we have right now are rumors that it's going to be out sometime in December, which is after the cutoff for this Game Awards anyway. That's why things like Xenoblade won't be in there, because there is a cutoff. Obviously, we have nominations, so the cutoff's already happened at this point. But what's interesting here is, well, it's in there, and a lot of people don't understand why. Now, on one hand, it has been a phenomenon that has pretty much swept all of Twitch and all of the internet. Massive sales, very popular, and I guess to them it'd be weird to leave it out of this year's drawing, but honestly, they could put it in next year's, and I don't think it'd be a big deal. Maybe they were worried about massive backlash or outrage from the Twitch streaming community, but if you just include it next year, I guess it wouldn't be a big deal. Once it's actually released, then it should be in there. That's the way a lot of people are seeing it. Then others, again, are saying, well, it's a popular game, probably the most popular game this year, so it needs to at least be nominated. Doesn't mean it's necessarily going to win. However, I will say this. If PUBG wins Game of the Year in this Video Game Awards show, a lot of people are going to take it even less seriously than they do now, because that is a game that's not even out yet. It's an early access game that some people go as far as to say is an asset flip. It's a joke sometimes, but there are people who really look at that and say, have you seen this game? This is Game of the Year. It barely works half the time. Now, listen, it's a fun game. A lot of people really like it. They really enjoy it. And that's kind of what it comes down to for games. So if it happens to win the popular vote, you know what? It happens to win the popular vote. I think either Mario, Zelda, or Horizon Zero Dawn. You can even go as far as to say something like Persona 5. Although that's a JRPG, and JRPGs generally tend to fall on the bottom of those voting results. However, I do think games that are at least finished, brought to market, and have completed their beta stage probably are the ones that should have precedence in winning. But it's all up to the user vote now, so we'll see what happens. In our last bit of news, let's talk about one of our favorite companies right now, and that's Capcom. And while they have not completely jumped into the loot box era that several other companies seem to be jumping into, well, they still do a lot of practices with cut DLC, right? It seems to be pretty common. Now, they had their Q&A with their investors, and they talked a lot about expectations for games that are out now and ones coming up, including, well, at this point, Monster Hunter. They have big expectations for that game. But then they also talked about the Switch, which kind of left some people scratching their heads still. When they were asked about the Switch, they simply put out a statement that didn't seem super confident in the system. They said this: "We feel the favorable performance of the Nintendo Switch and the impact it is having on reaffirming the status of home video game consoles are very positive. Going forward, we will support the Nintendo Switch based on our fundamental strategy of multi-platform development. Further, we are cognizant of the need to evaluate further how to best utilize the unique features of this platform, which differ from those of other home video game consoles." So the first half of the statement was good, and then the back half of the statement was confusing because they're still apparently evaluating how they're going to do this, tackle the Switch even, and it's confusing. It's like, why wouldn't you just put Okami, Mega Man Legacy Collection, the basics, like stuff that shouldn't be hard to put on there and probably would sell better on the Switch than other consoles? Because once again, while the Switch is building up a library of games, it's nowhere near the size of the PS4 and the Xbox One selection where these games will get lost. It's very odd for Capcom to be really glass half empty at times on the Switch, and they just seem downright hesitant to support the system. Very odd. They were the ones that said, put an extra gigabyte of RAM in there so we can do things like Resident Evil. Now they are bringing out Revelations later on this month, but still, it's odd to not want to develop things outside of that. We'll see when Ace Attorney shows up, because as far as we know now, that is reported by Kotaku, and they even named it in their shareholders meeting. So if they start showing up with that while it's still ports, it's still interesting. And then of course they're going to do a mainline one, but I would like to see some other stuff. Seriously, Capcom, do something with Mega Man. You have what is a massive sleeper IP right now. You could wake that thing up and it would just bring in tons of money. I know there are people who are like, it's Mega Man, it might not sell well. Trust me, there are enough people out there right now, especially if it's on the Xbox One, the PS4, the Switch, the PC, like everything, and it's an actual game. I think it'll sell well, and I don't think a lot of people dispute that, because a game like Mega Man really calls to the people who are younger and older, because there are older people who remember it, and there are younger people who would like to see it as an actual game in their time. So Capcom, get on Mega Man. They were also questioned about Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, and Capcom did not seem to want to talk about it at all. There are a lot of reports right now that Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite has not done well at all. We're talking sales, everything. It's just not doing well. Now we also get reports that DLC has been cut, and it seems to be kind of holding up that that's the case, as we keep seeing more and more DLC leaked and announced so close to when it originally came out. So here's the deal. They talked to their investors. Investors wanted to know, hey, how is that expectation for the 2 million units sold that you guys said you would do? And in their mind, they decided to say, well, we're going to try to push it along with consistent DLC that they get to buy, and we're going to try to push it along with Black Friday deals and other specials. So that tells me, and I'm sure investors were a little confused too, tells me that Capcom knows it's not going to reach its 2 million unit expectations unless they cut the price down, and that's what's going to happen. So if you're considering buying it now, just wait. It's going to be cheap Black Friday, apparently. According to them, they're going to cut that price right down. So you might see that game $35, maybe $30, that'd be crazy. So yeah, I wouldn't buy it now, just wait, and just know that they have this DLC planned a while ago, and it probably could have been in the game, because it seems to be part of their business strategy to continuously release DLC, not as free DLC, just DLC, to get you to buy in, and then maybe continue playing the game until the next DLC comes out, tell your friends about it, maybe they buy it. That seems like a weird strategy, but I guess you cut the price down and you keep updating it, and they hope to hit that 2 million mark. I wouldn't hold my breath, though, if I was Capcom on that. Ladies and gentlemen, that is it for Newswave. Make sure you comment, like, and subscribe. I appreciate you guys liking the videos. The videos seem to get over 1,000 likes pretty much every time, and I can see the difference in traffic and I guess recommendeds and everything in the statistics in the back office. So I really appreciate you guys liking the video. It really does help. Let me know what you guys think about any of the stuff we talked about. I'm curious what your plot would be for Super Mario the movie. I know there's never been a really good, like a great video game movie that would be something like a Mario that's rated G or anything. I mean, there hasn't been a massive attempt at it, but still, I would be curious because they don't want to let Mario, this guy, they don't want to let him on the big screen if it's going to be a terrible movie because Nintendo protects their IPs like crazy. So I don't think they'd let it on the big screen with a company like this unless they had a good plan, unless something big was being brewed up in the background to, well, make Mario a big screen star. Also, where do you fall on this Game of the Year situation with PUBG being alongside games that are complete and finished, with PUBG still technically in early access? Where do you fall on this? Are you more in the line of, well, it's popular, people love it, it's a game that gets played all the time, it should be in the running at least? Or are you on the side of, well, it's not done, it's not finished, it's still buggy, it's in early access, so why would it be alongside a bunch of finished games with the possibility of it winning Game of the Year? Let me know what you guys think down below, and I'll see you next time.